Welcome to the Middle Age Podcast with me, Raging Rich.
And me, T.A. Shelano.
And T.A., we are finally here. It is episode 10 of season 1. We are at the end of our very first season of the Middle Age Podcast.
I know, it's been a real whirlwind, Rich, to be honest, and I can't believe here we are at episode 10 and contemplating, obviously, planning for sort of season 2.
Yeah, we're really excited about season 2. Obviously, we announced it a couple of episodes ago that we were going to come back for a second season. We've got some really good stuff planned. Looking forward to bringing that to everybody. So please do stay tuned.
Yeah, and thank you very much for everybody who has been listening during season 1. It certainly exceeded, I think, our expectations, and thank you very much for listening. But I think, Rich, it's time that we get into the final weight loss figures.
Let's go for it.
So, for the final weigh-in, T.A. Shelano has lost 3 pounds.
Fantastic.
Raging Rich has lost 4 pounds. Now, we said we were going to give the start and end weights, and this will obviously show who is the winner. So, T.A. Shelano's starting weight was 19 stone 6 pounds, which is 123.6 kilograms. Raging Rich was 20 stone 1 pound, which is 127.7 kilos. What I can now say is that from the beginning to the end, T.A. Shelano lost 7 pounds, which is just over 3 kilos. Raging Rich has lost 12 pounds, which is around 5.5 kilos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, we've given you our beginning weights, and so then our end weights come out at T.A. Shelano, 18 stone 13 pounds, which is 120.4 kilos, and Raging Rich has finished at 19 stone 3 pounds, which is 122.2 kilos. So, it has not been perfect, Rich, but you've won, okay? But we have also, our challenge was to lose between half a stone and a stone. Now, I'm scraping it, unfortunately, there on the 7 pounds, but I'll take that. You've obviously well within the boundaries of the challenge, and I congratulate you wholeheartedly on your success. Well done. What have you got to say?
Well, thank you very much, T.A. I've got to say, because obviously we spoke about this before recording, so we'd set kind of this idea of we were gonna always make sure with each weigh-in we met the same conditions. So if you had a pair of jeans on, you had to weigh in with a pair of jeans on and all this sort of stuff, which was being done. There was a couple of weeks where literally I'd get the text from you to say you'd done the weigh-in, and I'd go, oh no, I've completely forgot, leg it into weigh-in, and I've literally just got out of bed. So I haven't got the conditions that we set. But I will say, I did weigh myself when we did that first weigh-in, and I was around, I think it was 19 stone 9 pounds. Why are you shaking your head? Why are you shaking your head?
I don't know what you're going on about
I'm just telling you, this is what my starting weight was without the conditions met of the original thing.
What is this conditions met? It's just a weigh-in, right?
Fine. Well, look,
hang on a second. Let's get into this for a second. I appreciate you, for whatever reason, have weighed yourself in your pants rather than putting
it was
on...
once.
Once.
Okay, twice. But
twice. I mean, it's getting worse.
To be fair, the second time was after the challenge ended.
I mean, I question. You have to question.
And the weight went up the second time.
I have to question the integrity of this now. However, I am going to allow you to still remain as the winner of the challenge, because there is a gap there, and I don't unless it was a particularly heavy pair of jeans, I don't think I would have beat you. But yes, I think as far as conditions are concerned, you are really meant to try and weigh in equivalent circumstances. Now, whether that is the a boxer weighing in for a fight in their pants, or you go into your local slimming club or something and you weigh in roughly the same sort of clothes, weight, etc. I mean, I was wondering at points whether or not you were standing on one leg, you were fiddling with the device to make it weigh less or whatever. I think I'm going to accept, and subject to listeners' views here, that it's an honest mistake, and that you've not done it with the intention of cheating in this challenge.
No, not at all. And as I say, we spoke about this actually again earlier, and obviously the whole thing about the forfeit, which was dropped into an episode without us discussing it, kind of became a thing. But what we've decided is we're not going to completely null and void it. I think we did say we'd try and sort something out that kind of just is a bit of a... We've both messed up over the weeks. I think we need to... The chicken satay is happening. That's one thing that's definitely happening.
I think the punishment should be, I'm actually going to message Sean T in America, and I'm going to see if he'll do a virtual session with you where you get punished severely for your lack of integrity here with the weigh-in.
I tell you what, right? I tell you what, I'll make a deal with you right here and right now. If by the end of season 2, somehow, Sean T listens to this and gets in touch with us,
yeah,
I will genuinely do a proper, none of this recovery nonsense we were going to do, a proper session of insanity.
Okay, alright. Well, you know what? There is something else we have to do a disclaimer on here, though, Rich, because I feel like we may have slightly misled listeners, and we would always correct if we think we have. So very early on, back at the beginning, I think I kind of intimated that between us we weighed a baby elephant. I'm afraid I've done some research, and I can confirm that we actually pretty much weigh a baby elephant each. And even with the weight loss that we've sort of managed to achieve through season 1, which I think is good, and it's been a really positive thing to do, we are still way past any sort of reasonable figures, and there is much more work to do for season 2 and beyond. But I think it's a good start, actually, and it's focused the mind on this kind of thing, hasn't it? It hasn't always stopped us from doing the wrong sort of things and having too many of the wrong foods and drinks, but it's focused the mind certainly more.
I think so. I think what's been really interesting, there's still those moments where you'll have a day at work and you have a bit of a bad day, and then you get home and you think, don't really want to do any cooking, I'm just going to get a takeaway. Or there's a weekend where, you know, we've done some recording and we might end up having something to eat and things like that, and there are times we need to cut out, and we've spoken about that, and it's not anything that's been done with like any intent to ruin the process, to kind of put each other off or anything. But yeah, we do need to do a bit more, and I think certainly it's helped us, like you say, mindset changes and things like that has been good.
I mean, I think in the interest of transparency, we do also have to point out that on often occasion we have rewarded ourselves when we've finished the completion of a recording by heading over the road and grabbing drinks in the pub, which, you know, isn't really in the spirit of what we're doing, but it always feels like when you've kind of done that, you're like, oh yeah, let's go and get a drink now, whereas actually we shouldn't be doing that. We should be going, right, let's go and have I don't know, some kind of carrot juice or something instead, maybe. But I think the thing is, what it has done is focus the mind. It's not been perfect, but I think you and I, without this challenge, actually, would probably be at the starting weights, or even potentially even higher. So it has definitely been a useful exercise, even if we haven't actually done as much useful exercise as we might have done, or eaten the wrong things. So there's positives and negatives to take, I think, reflecting back. There's challenges we set ourselves for season 1. We've done certain things, other things well, some things not so well. And yeah, I think it's that learning point then of how we'll take that into season 2 and beyond, really, of life, I guess.
I think for season 2, the big thing we need to start focusing on is the cooking. Massively. I think I've dropped the ball on that very late into the challenge. Wasn't doing it at all. So early on, yeah, trying to get those meals cooked, brilliant.
I have to say, I have had feedback from a listener who's challenging whether or not you've done the chicken satay yet, and they were very disappointed when I said that you hadn't, and so we will be having to hold you to account for the chicken satay going into season 2.
The chicken satay will be made before the end of season 2. Let me just point out, I'm not that great a chef. I'm not Jamie Oliver, Gordon Ramsay, Ebbers from Sorted Food, any of that. You keep shaking your head again.
I'm not shaking. I'm shaking my head at you. He said, I will have finished the chicken satay by the end of season 2. I mean, how much time?
Hang on, I'm cooking your tea tonight.
How much? But how much time does one man need to cook a chicken satay? You could build a restaurant in the time that you're looking at to do one chicken satay.
I'm cooking my signature dish. I'm doing enchiladas tonight. Come on.
Yep, I'm braving that tonight.
Braving it.
But then next time we want the chicken satay.
Braving it. I'm not having this. Like I've poisoned you or something before.
No, but we want the chicken
I told
satay.
you, chicken satay is getting cooked. At some point during season 2, we've already sort of planned an idea for when to do that. So it's in handy. It's going to happen. Don't worry. We will have a progress report on the chicken satay. To the point, Mrs. Shelano has got to lend me some stuff because I haven't got it from the recipe. There's like certain utensils you need to cook this chicken satay in this recipe book. And I had to discuss borrowing some things that I don't actually own in order to make it. So there you go.
I can't believe how convoluted this is becoming to cook a chicken satay. Seriously. Okay. All right. We're going to hold him. He's definitely doing it, right? I think now from a serious point, we're obviously going to do some sort of reflections on...
Hang on. I'll tell you this. It's more likely I'm going to make the chicken satay than you're going to watch Avengers Endgame.
Yes.
Well, there you go. So that's the line drawn under it.
That's not... What is that even? That's not even a question, is it, really? That's not even a thing.
Shocking.
You know, but the way it's going, they'll have made another 9 Avengers films before you've cooked the satay. I think that's the bit that myself and the listeners...
As long as I make the chicken satay before 2026, Avengers Doomsday, we're good.
2026? It's only 2024. I mean, come on. Seriously, talk about procrastination. We'll get more into that later on. So, right, joking aside, we want to reflect back, I think, don't we, on season 1. Not just the weight loss challenge, but actually the process, how it's kind of played out, really. So, from your perspective, Rich, what's your kind of key takeaways or highlights from season 1?
I've really enjoyed doing the guest episodes. Thought they were a really good way of getting a different perspective on things. Some of the discussions that we had about having guests on the podcast, we wanted to have a really good mix of guests that could provide outlooks that were different to ours, and I think we've done that really well, and I think learned a lot as well from those guests and their outlook on life. So yeah, really enjoyed that, and looking forward to hopefully continuing that with guests in season 2. But I also think we've learned a lot about, like you said, mindset and things like that. We have learned a lot from doing it, and actually this recording of the podcast has been brilliant for mental health. It's given us an outlet. It's really helped focus the mind, like you said, on things when you said earlier about that. So yeah, it's been a really good few weeks recording. Really enjoyed talking to our guests. Really enjoyed the jokes and the laughs with you. You're going to get your flipping chicken satay, and yeah, let's see what happens in season 2.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the guests, and I think it's a good opportunity as well to, thank Laura, Amy and Ian, who obviously gave up their time and gave us some really great episodes. They were really enjoyable to do. I've taken things from what they've said, and I know other people have as well, so really glad that we were able to do those, and thank them for that. I think the other thing around that is when you have to look at what your audience wants, which I think is also a key thing of this kind of process, isn't it? And looking back, and I think it's fair to say that the listeners, the stats would suggest on the whole the guest episodes do attract maybe slightly more listeners than just me and you musing. So I think, give the public what they want. Season 2, we will be looking to get more guest episodes on board. So it's not just me trying to get him to do this chicken satay, or him trying to get me to watch some superhero film that's dreadful. Something like that. So that's the thing, isn't it? You've got to look back and say what really worked well. And I think the guest interviews interspersed with some of our other episodes gave us a great mix and a real sort of a wider breadth of content. Actually, we didn't just purely focus on me and you for 10 episodes bantering. We've kind of been able to bring different things to the table, and I agree with you, it's been a great outlet, really good thing to do. But yeah, so I think that's been my reflection here. It's been a really interesting thing to do, and yeah, it gives you something else and ideas and options and talking to people, and I think the interview, going back to the interviews, how we as people who aren't trained perhaps in doing that kind of thing, but actually bring that out in terms of the mix of us interviewing one other person, and the way we kind of did that with the guests, that came out really well, I think, in what's gone out. And that's made that like a really interesting thing, reflecting back of how you get the best out of your guests, how you get people to relax, how you get them to be themselves, to a process that they might not be used to, because ultimately, we were interviewing people who aren't famous and aren't necessarily used to doing some of those things.
I agree with that. I think getting the guests on has been really good, and actually the research that we did some research before we started recording and found guest episodes are really strong, which is great. But I think getting that feedback from them, getting their stories, it has been a great way to give a voice to other people on this podcast, like you say, not just us rambling all the time, and we do a lot of that. So it has been really good for that. I think what's interesting as well, though, when we spoke about the stats, our episode on Bliss Revisited randomly did really well. And I can only equate it to the fact that we have potentially started a feud with the writer of Girls 5 Ever. And that's the reason people have started listening to that episode.
Well, I mean, we obviously talked about Meredith Scardino's Girls 5 Ever in the episode. And we talked about the idea of reviving, what we did. So again, are you suggesting here that as well as sort of seeking out more guest episodes for season 2, that we are actually genuinely revisiting that and doing some sort of clips of our, work, which Meredith may or may not like, I don't know, a more British version of Girls 5 Ever, which I think is really what we'd kind of done before we ever even had obviously watched Girls 5 Ever. For anybody who's wondering what the hell we're going on about here, and you have to listen to season 1, episode 3. Yeah, you'd have to listen to episode 3 for this to make more sense. But yeah, so is that something else we revive from a content point of view? Is that another option that we explore beyond just me and you, trying not to eat too many takeaways and drink too much beer?
I think one of the things that we have to do with season 2 is expand sort of the remit of the podcast a little bit. I do find listening to some other podcasts, there's some really good stuff. You keep the core theme, but there are things we can branch out into, which was proven by that Bliss episode. So I think there's a lot we can cover there.
And you know what? We're open to ideas. If there are things that you really want us to cover, let us know. We're available on social media. Contact us. Say this is what you'd really like to do or like us to do. Then we're open to exploring ideas within, the genre of the podcast. And I think that's the key as well. What we've tried to do is not veer too much away from our core program, effectively. Bringing things in that are, relevant, and bringing voices in that obviously within, our kind of range of audience target, etc., and our own sort of era makes sense. Then that's another key thing for us. But we are keen to explore, other topics and things like that. Provided it doesn't drift too much away from obviously our core message, I suppose.
I think so. I think unless there's a very specific special episode that's dedicated to something, it's got to be on brand with that. But certainly expanding slightly on some of those ideas that we've had and moving forward with that.
So we will be coming back.
We will be indeed.
Very soon. But let's get a bit excited now, Rich, because we are actually going to do a bonus episode. It's not really part of season 1 and it's before season 2. But next week, we are, to celebrate, commemorate my book launch, doing a special podcast episode. And I am looking forward to that. A project that was years in the making. It's here. I'm signing books. And I'm very grateful to you for agreeing to do an additional bonus episode to mark that occasion, which will be, a bit of fun, maybe slightly outside of the genre, no weight loss challenges, none of that. It will be, much more around that and what's not. So
I think, though, that's like we've said, where we should have the odd episodes that are slightly, we spoke some creative projects at the start of the season, like the Doctor's Hidden Patients and obviously Bliss in those early episodes. And I think it'll be good to celebrate the launch of the book, finally available to the public. Obviously, you've had the pre-sale that's done really well. So now it's time for the rest of the world to be able to read the book and meet these characters and get to know them.
The rest of the world. I mean, there you go. And that's also like the podcast where we've had listeners around the world as well, which is fantastic. But yeah, check me out at shelanobooks.co.uk. Doctor's Hidden Patients is my debut thriller novel. Absolutely delighted. Has really come to fruition after a lot of work, and I am trying to work on obviously a second novel in between my contractual obligations to Raging Rich and the podcast. We'll eventually hopefully have a second novel to follow in due course, which hopefully, or the way this conversation has gone actually, you may see before Rich actually cooks that satay.
Hang on a minute. Okay, look, let's just talk a little bit about season 2. So, as we say, he's laughing his head off for that joke. I don't know why it wasn't that funny. So yeah, we are going to be coming back for season 2, and we are looking for guests. We are looking for topics. We are looking for more content that we're trying to provide, bringing you everything you've already heard, but bringing you much more. Really looking forward to that. We are on socials, as T.A. mentioned. We have descriptions for all of that in the podcast notes. You can get the link that'll take you to all of our social media, so please do follow us on there, and stay tuned for next week when we celebrate the release of The Doctor's Hidden Patients by T.A. Shelano.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so season 2, we are going to be back. Bigger and better, but hopefully not bigger in a weighing sense.
So yeah, we are going to be back, as you say, and we're going to be bringing more stuff for season 2. We're going to certainly be bringing the guests in, as you say. That's been a really big success, having those guests, and hopefully we're going to also be able to guest on a few podcasts ourselves, which I think will be a lot of fun.
Well, this is it, isn't it? We're, I would say, open to ideas, open to different things. You know, we do this for fun, enjoyment, giving people something that's, you know, hopefully a good product to listen to. We, you know, obviously we're not professionals. We're working at this. We're evolving, and we're just keeping it going. And we thank you all for listening. It's really enjoyed it. And thank you to you, Rich, of course, for inviting me into this project. And so much so, you know, I didn't even bat an eyelid at signing the contract for season 2.
Well, thank you, T.A., for agreeing to do the podcast. It kind of, you say I kind of got you to do the project, but actually we both mentioned a podcast randomly at around the same time, and it just seemed like the right thing to do, and really enjoyed doing it. Can't wait for season 2. So we shall see all of you. Well, maybe not see you, but we will be back hopefully on a podcast platform near you very soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.